young daughter and stuff, racing street stocks, racing cage cars, what do you do as a sense of safety? Because not only, is he a big guy, and he's over 6 foot tall and everything else, and I talked to him about that, and he says that his biggest fear is being upside down and he'd pass out. Then on top of that, if the car happens to catch on fire, he says, but he does, teach talent how, what safety is all about. He has the fire suppressant collar, the helmet sock,
hood,
that comes down, whatever. He says, he tells talent, he says, hey, this is just for dirt. Realistically, it's for fire coming up, because you think about it, that is your number one exposed area, is your neck area.
Sure.
Then it comes up in your helmet. You bring up another point and stuff.
Well, another thing is I see a lot of drivers driving without gloves.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of drivers.
I was sitting in the stands a few weeks ago, and the same deal, especially the super sport guys, because you can see them now.
Right.
There was probably half a dozen guys that did not have gloves on.
Yeah.
Well, this is the weird thing. I mean, that's a great point and stuff you do. I mean, we're going to hit on a lot of points. Remember, race fans, you guys can call in with your questions, comments, let us know, and everything else. But yeah, you bring up a good point and stuff. Is that up at Sunset? You can't mandatory anything. You can recommend, which I think sucks. Sorry.
Which is the same at Willamette.
And I think it's probably based on insurance.
That's exactly what it is.
Then it makes the racetrack liable.
Exactly, because if you get hurt and you say, hey, I recommend, or I tell you that you have to wear those gloves, then and it's all that. I wish people weren't so happy. But I'll tell you what, if you get into a car, I don't care if it's a 4B, dwarf car, sprint car, late model, whatever, take the safety precaution. Wear some sort of protection. Anything and everything can happen. Especially you get in, to the now what we call wedge cars and stuff. These guys have no roof. They have nothing protecting them. What if a rock comes up, breaks your hand? Okay.
Well,
what if a rock comes up and hits you in the neck? I mean, anything and everything can happen now.
I tell everybody, if in a fire situation, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go for your seatbelts.
Right.
Well, if you have a fire in the cockpit,
guess what?
You're going to look down and your skin's going to be melting off your hands because you're not protected.
And now you're going to freak out even more.
And if you're hanging upside down, you're going to want to release your belts, and you're going to land on your head. On the roof. So
how's all that going to work out for you?
Right.
They don't think about that until it actually happens. And it's sad that we have to see something tragic happen, to a fellow racer. We didn't even know him. None of us know him, but we all feel that sympathy and everything for the family, because of the loss.
Charlie was a big part of the community he was in. His
Absolutely.
area, it'd be like losing a big name driver out here on the West Coast. And we've seen, whether you read Speedway magazine or you read online, whatever racing publications you're reading, since Charlie Floyd's wreck, especially in the dirt segments
has
of all
got
these publications,
tons of news
safety. And we saw this after Earnhardt died. I mean, after Dale Earnhardt died, NASCAR lost their minds. I mean, which in a good way. I mean, Honda bikes everything became mandatory to keep the drivers. And I think for the most part, it's worked. We've seen a couple fatalities since then, but there's a situation.
And I'd like to kind of go back just a minute to, not wearing a Hans or stuff. I would really hate to see drivers give up safety for safety,
right?
Because I've been to thousands of wrecks and probably can count the amount of fire that I've seen is probably on one or two hands. Instead of I've seen extricated hundreds of people out of cars because of their neck. Your neck is the most important thing. To
and that's
protect.
one thing. If you look at in-car video of any modified or late model or dirt car wreck, I mean, the helmet is just
it's
all over the place.
Craig Castle the other day at the Larry Shaw school that we had, he talked about the reason he wears a Hans is because of that in-car video. And he went out and got himself a Hans device to protect that because his head was bouncing around like a basketball in there.
Right.
Well, like Jeff brings up a comment here a little bit earlier, talk about building bigger greenhouses, for more purpose than anything. But I talked to the maker of TRE, and that's Steve Hallscamper, and the maker of basically Kenny Miller's car. And here a few years back, Kenny had actually got an accident up at Madras, got hit in the door, literally could not climb out of his car. And of course, Kenny, we all know, is a bigger type person and stuff too. Couldn't climb out with his helmet and stuff on. So he actually had to take us out. Now, if that car was on fire, what happened? So all that goes back to Steve. All those, and Steve is a small shop. He's been doing it for close to 20 years and stuff now, but it's still a small mom and pop shop. You know, his cars and stuff are, you know, Midwest and all that back there. And I asked him, I said, you know, asked him if he could be on tonight, and he says, man, he's just so busy. He's building race cars and stuff, you know, left and right. I said, what is the number one thing is safety? He says, to make my cars be like Indy cars. And I said, well, what's that kind of mean? He says, basically, if you back into something, the rear's going to crumple up. If you hit something with the front's going to crumple up. That center section where that driver sits is going to be 100% contained. And I said, okay, that's good. That's awesome. Now what do you do for driver safety as a sense of a rollover or a side impact, stuff like that? He says it all depends. He deals really closely with a lot of his drivers that buy his cars. If you're a bigger person, then he'll make the cockpit bigger. If you're a smaller person, then it's for size. He says, you know, for resale, then, you know, it's driver beware. I mean, if you're a bigger person, you don't want to get a smaller car, you know, a smaller cockpit area. But he does. He thinks about that. He adds 6 inches to the roof height. He says, hey, you know, he goes to the, you know, the maximum that he can, you know, for IMCA or UMTA or whatever.
There is a roof height limit.
There is a roof height limit. But he'll go to whatever that limit is and say, okay, well, if we need to bring it back a little bit, then we'll bring it back so that doghouse, that opening, is big enough for if something happens, you know, an A-post or something gets crushed in, or, I mean, if you roll that hard, that driver can still be extricated out of that car.
I think that's a great idea. And I think with some of the wrecks that we've seen with cars, or the technologies that cars are getting so fast, hooking up so hard that when they wreck, obviously the wrecks are worse. I think you're going to start seeing manufacturers do more of that, and something that I'm all for.
Cottage Grove years ago used to put a 12-inch cube in the cockpit. If you couldn't get out of both sides of the car with that 12-inch cube, you had to either lower the deck or do something so that cube would fit in there.
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, yeah, you think about it, too, is a lot of these modified drivers and stuff now, you sit in a car, you sit so far down that you can barely see out of the front. Mm-hmm. You can't see out of the side. Yeah. And everyone's like, well, why do you want to see out of the side? You just have to worry about... No, it's for safety. It's not just to see your competitor next to you. I mean, you're not gaining that much. You know, again, I'm not, you know, into aerodynamics and all that type of stuff. I don't know how much, quote, they're doing because we don't wind tunnel these cars.
Well, and that's the thing. You don't need to. You're not creating that much downforce to risk that kind of safety. An example, and this is when I really started thinking about this, was a couple years ago when my dad passed away. We did the memorial lap out at Willamette Speedway, and Brody Pompey let me drive his modified. I got in his car, and he's every bit as tall as I am, if not taller. I got in his car, and I could not believe how tight that cockpit was. I'm thinking, wow, the steering wheel's right there on you. I mean, it was just built right around you. I'm thinking, man, these things have gotten smaller and smaller. Jeff, you've been building race cars a long time, literally your whole life. I mean, you were born into the sport. Your dad's a former champ, and you guys have done a lot in the sport. Let's talk about when you guys construct a new race car. When you guys are building your own chassis, now you're using the VCs. Yep, what are you doing? What safety factors are you guys putting into your racing program to keep Craig safe?
So, a full containment seat to start with. We use a Randy LaJoie seat. Randy does an awesome job with that stuff for us. Using 6-point belts. Dennis Taylor out here in Albany, Taylor Motorsports, builds us a 6-point cam lock system, so it's easy to get in and out of. The Victory Circle, we were fortunate. That car, the dash bar, is up quite a ways. We didn't have to raise it like we did in the Shaw. So there was extra knee room for Craig to get in. We use a sweet collapsible steering column. So for a frontal impact, it'll collapse and do what it needs to do. The door bars in the Victory Circle are out more. The race cage, like I was talking about, we raised that cage 2 inches. We went up and looked at Colin's car, and Craig sat in it and thought, okay, we've got enough room. Let's go ahead and raise that cage up a couple inches. Mm-hmm. When you put the ignition panel in the car, making sure that in a blind situation you can just slap and hit everything and turn them off. That's something that came from drag racing. Our seat belts, when we mount them, we use a wraparound seat belt, and they're 4 inches below the top of the shoulder and all those things. Kind of follow the NHRA rule book about how to mount seat belts. We use a 6-point seat belt as well. So that crotch strap, it really keeps you contained in the seat.
So you talk about a cam lock, and if race fans and stuff, if you're listening, if you don't know what a cam lock is, it's basically when you put all your belts into basically one center section, and they all kind of lock. And then if you want to release it, you turn a knob that releases it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't like those cam locks because the simple fact is when they're fumbling, they can't. It's like which way do you go? Do you go this way, that way? When you get into
it only goes one way.
Yeah, when you get in that situation, and that's they don't, racers and stuff, when you get in that panic situation, we don't think. We all been racing, we all know. And so that's why a lot of people stuff, right? So that's why a lot of people like just the quick release and stuff, and they'll put, a long red strap, a Velcro strap or something on it.
Oftentimes they'll have a strap of Velcro to help keep them locked over.
Right. So when it comes into your driver preferring that cam lock over the quick release, why is that?
I think it probably came from me having them in my drag car. I think the first set of belts we had back in '96 when we first started racing were a set of latch and link style, and we just upgraded to the cam lock. It's a quarter of a turn. It's quick. It's easy. They snap in easy. A little bit of WD-40 in the mechanism to keep them clean.
Right.
They work flawlessly.
So when you make a really, really, really good point is being able to reach your dash.
Yeah.
A lot of these drivers and stuff I see now, a lot of them have their stuff up underneath the dash. I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, me personally, I like to sit with my elbows bent, in a car and all that type of stuff, and be able to reach, 6 inches enough.
You should be able to reach anything in that cockpit when you're strapped in the back.
Exactly.
That's right.
And the other part of it is you need to be comfortable. You're going to be faster if you're comfortable in the race car. So it just kind of goes hand in hand with that.
So what can we do to give the racers more advice coming from somebody that has your background as a car builder and everything, sitting right here, right now? What would you give a driver advice saying, hey, look, make your dash panel this way, or make it, what should you do to make it safer?
Just make it within reach. Kind of going back to what the drag race guys, the NHRA, when you do a Super Gas or a Super Comp license, 890 or 990, you do a blindfold test in the car. They want you turn your ignition switch off, find your parachute lever. So kind of use the same attitude in your dirt car. What's it going to take to shut the engine off in this car? Where's your battery switch? Is it within reach of your deck? Is it on the side? Where is it?
Well, that's there is right huge because I've seen even lately, and you can sit there and as a fire safety guy can kind of come up comment on this too. Some of them don't have it, and or if they have it, it's way over there.
Yeah, you can't reach it if it's at the back of the car.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the reasons that I asked Jeff to come on here is because his background in so many different facets of racing. And what I know from talking with you and Craig over the years is you do use applications from other sanctioning bodies to make your race car as safe as you can. And if you looked at one of Jeff's race cars he's put together, they're top notch. The safety in them is
I've been around
perfect. And those guys they really got their program on point. And I've spent some time in the shop over the years, kind of go out and just visit, hang out, and look at what they're doing. It's like, wow. That's a great idea.
Craig won't let me in his garage no more. He says I take too many pictures. No, I've never been there. Craig, if you're listening, I'm just fooling with you. I'll probably get an email later.
A question for Doug is, you're out there in the pits. You're looking at all those cars, making sure things are safe. Let's talk about some of the things you've seen that makes you just scratch your head and think, what the heck are you doing thinking you can do that on a race car and it's safe? You're out there every week. Let's talk about what you see.
Well,
without saying names, let's talk about what you see.
Yeah. So, might hint a car number or so.
No. A pop bottle as a fuel cap.
Wow.
Saw that. That
custom.
Was interesting. Yeah. Seat belts mounted to the seat.
Or seat belts that have got burn holes in them. I've seen that before as well. Or cut in half.
Yeah, I've seen them tied together too.
Yeah.
Zip ties work.
Yeah.
Zip ties. I've seen that. There's a lot of strange stuff that I've seen over the years.
So let's talk a little bit more about the kill switch. Now, you as a fire safety crew, pretty much should know exactly where if something happens to be able to go right to it and have it.
No.
I know that.
That's the problem.
Me personally,
everybody
mounts it differently. And see,
Yeah.
that's the thing is, I personally, this is just me. I personally think if you do have a kill switch, you mount it as close to the driver and/or have a 6-inch round, something red bright, so when the fire crew, because at night you can't see nothing, and so they know where to go. Because if you're upside down, I'm just assuming that's the first thing you look for is a kill switch.
Best thing that I've seen, and this is what I would like to see, is a kill switch right behind the driver.
Absolutely.
On the driver's side of the car, right behind him.
So the problem with the driver can't reach around and get it.
Well, if you
when
can
he's
put
bolted in the car.
right, but if you can put it,
but if they have the normal switches, and then just a total battery disconnect right behind the seat,